everyone. Welcome back to episode 8 of Philosophers in the Therapy Room. We have Sameema joining us again, and we hopefully will have a productive and challenging and I think multidisciplinary discussion today, but with a very hard philosopher to start with. Welcome, Sameema.
The hardest, yeah. So we have chosen Heidegger for today. I mean, not only Heidegger is one of the most difficult philosopher to explain, but also neither of us is an expert on Heidegger. So we have inherited some of his philosophy. So like Hora has expertise on Sörge, who was Heidegger's teacher. Complex relationship with Heidegger. Let's not go there. And I have studied mostly existentialist philosophy, who are kind of like children of Heidegger in many ways. So we will do the unthinkable today and talk about Heidegger, but we do want to place it in a very, very particular environment, basically today, right now, what's happening today, and we want to reflect on that. And I think the best starting point is probably the most important thing that's happening in the world at the moment is US election.
Yes.
And that's what we were talking about earlier, Hora.
Yes, true. Yes, true.
Yeah, so we were like just thinking that, you know, I'm an Indian Australian, Hora is an Iranian Australian. Why does it matter to us what happens in American election?
I think not only American election is as important as local elections that we have experienced either as an Iranian or Australian, but also we are thinking about how a political circumstance and how kind of a specific decision makings of a nation affect the whole world formation.
Exactly.
And I think we normally misses out this idea that our decision making in every single moment in our everyday life affects much more than us. Affects the immediate it affects much more than the immediate consequence of it. And when we are thinking about decision making, not only like a problem solving idea, but specifically in moral decision making, political decision making, social decision making, we are not we are not capable to see the very boundary of where the consequence of our decision making will end. So it's not only one consequence, it's not only one outcome that we are wishing for, and actually we are making a decision for that. Somehow it's a series of consequences that come after each other, but we might know several of them, definitely not all of them. So at the back of our mind there should be this idea that, okay, I throw this decision into the world. It's not my decision. The moment I make the decision, it belongs to the world.
Exactly.
Even going to Aldi or going to Coles or going to Woolworth, it will affect the whole world. But because we don't trace the very series of the consequences of our action normally, I mean, we don't have the capacity to do that. It's a very, very complex network of interrelations in the world. We think that, okay, this really finishes with me.
Exactly.
This finishes with me buying this meat from this shop. And that's it. I consume it and that's it. The only thing it's about my affordability, my health, and that's it. This will be finished by me consuming certain meat and the shopkeeper earning something. But it's much more complicated than that. And I guess we are going to discuss how Heidegger sees this interconnectedness. And is it just like a network for him, or it's much more existential than that? Sameema, the floor is yours.
So I think before we begin, I also want to, like, where we want to get at is basically the whole idea of how personal is interconnected with political, social, and it's, not by I decide to be political or I don't decide to be political. By very nature, this is who we are. So we want to come back to that idea and how that actually impacts our very being, our mental health in the end. But mental health is nothing more than our being, what is healthy for our being and what's not. So we want to come back to that idea and placing political and social relationships into that context. So I'll do the unthinkable and talk about Heidegger.
Do it together. No, go on. You'll do it.
Okay, so any Heidegger scholars listening to this, recording, I apologize in advance. This is a very, very feeble attempt to present Heidegger's idea and then also present them in a form that they're accessible to non-philosophical audience as well. So the question that he begins with is a much more broader question, that what exists? The question of being, what's there, which is something philosophers are always engaging with, what's the nature of reality, what's there. And he says that the best way to approach that question is to actually begin with our own existence, because we are also part of this existence and we have proximity to ourselves. So let's start looking at ourselves. I can know myself the best probably, so let's begin there. So that's where we are starting at, to know human beings so that we can know the nature of reality. Now, it seems like an easy task. I'm a human. Let's know myself. He says that actually it's really challenging because I'm so close to myself. This proximity actually obscures myself from me. It's like it's my blind spot. So I'm so close to myself. I live my life that I'm not actually aware of myself really well. And so it becomes a really difficult task to actually unveil who I am. So he begins by, or I wouldn't say begins by, but this is how I'm going to begin today, by giving the term he gives us, like what is a human being? And he uses the term Dasein, being there. So not a rational being, not a political, a political being like Aristotle, not a social being, or not a human being like a Homo sapien, the way science describes, none of that. Being there. And this there, it's just so simple, but at the same time, when you start thinking about, why does he use the term there for us? Instead of describing any of our properties the way we do identify ourselves, like, oh, we are relational beings, we are intellectual beings. No, none of that. We are there. And the reason I believe, and which many other thinkers would argue, is that the world isn't built in my being. So for Heidegger, it's really important that we acknowledge that it's not that I'm this kind of a creature who has these properties that enters this world and then engages with this world of objects and starts doing things around. No. The meaning of my own being is actually built in the world. I'm involved in the world. I understand myself while being engaged in the world. And that is so, so important for Heidegger, because this world is not just this world of physical objects. The world is the world of significance and meaning. So when I like, for example, if I think of my being here now, of course I'm spatially here. And of course there are objects here, but these objects don't make up my world. What is this world? This is therapy room. We are philosophers in therapy room. You are my friend, my colleague. This whole process, of course, there's a whole mechanical aspect of it, but the meaning-giving aspect of us sharing this knowledge, having listeners, that is basically the world that is there, not just the world of physical object. And so for Heidegger, I know myself. I actually be myself, become myself in this process of engagement with the world, and my being comes through that. This world is not just the world of physical object, it's a social world. It's the world, the other term he uses is that I'm being with others, mitzai. I'm not this, thing that forms relationship with others. So if we remember Descartes from early days, he says that when I look outside the window, I see people walking in hats and coats. But I can doubt that they are people. There might be machines wearing hats and coats, like robots, automata. Heidegger wouldn't say that.
No.
Because my being with other, I am aware of your beingness, you being a human being, the moment I enter the room.
Yeah.
When I enter an empty room, my engagement is very different when I enter a room where another human being is sitting. So for Heidegger, my being is built with the other. My being is built in a world of significance. I cannot extract myself. And a very, very specific term he uses to describe human being is care. I think Hora would be better to use the German term that he
Sorge.
Yeah. So, and care is that defines
the world.
us.
Care is the world.
Yeah.
The whole environing space or environing sphere that human being belongs to and is in there.
Yeah.
It's that there is what Heidegger calls Sorge or care.
Yeah.
So, Sameema, how he does understand care?
So I was like trying to read any definition, any way of understanding the care, and it was really challenging. I mean, also it was last minute reading, so I didn't do that much in-depth research. However, the way I would, understand care in Heidegger's term, it's very different from the way we use care.
For example, in feminist care ethics.
Or even every day. So like for us, care is a very positive and a very reflective and a very emotional
and committed
and also committed stance. Like I care for you. So it's an effort I put. For Heidegger, care is my way of being. Care is not something I turn on and off. It's not something like I don't care about this, but I care about that. No. Care is my basic stance towards the world. I can't turn it off.
If I wanted to put it other way, we will say, for example, the moment I stop caring, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Because in this care, I sustain my being there.
Exactly.
It's actually this project I am, human being, is a project, is an unfinished project.
Exactly.
And this is the existential term in all of existential philosophy, that human being as a unfinished project. As long as you are in the game, that means
you
care about this project of you.
Exactly.
You're living. Stopping caring and you're not here anymore.
Exactly.
So you're not there.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a pause of existence.
Exactly.
It's a finish of this line. This is what Heidegger calls death. This is
exactly.
the limit.
Exactly.
This is death.
Exactly.
The moment that you stop caring, and caring means just involving with the world.
You are involved with the world as your very way of being.
Exactly.
When you're trying to detach yourself, that's also care, because you are involved in a particular way. So it's not something you can turn on and off. And that's why when we started with the idea of why do I care what's happening in America? Why do I care what's happening in the Middle East? Why do I care what's happening in Ukraine and Russia? Why do I care which is happening beyond Brisbane or my neighborhood? We are, south of Brisbane, north of Brisbane. Why do I care about what's happening in Ipswich? And as per, the understanding of Dasein that Heidegger gives us, we can't not care. By very nature of who we are, we care, and this care means that the way I engage with the world, I'm impacted by what's happening around me immediately, but also in a much more distant way, because we are all interconnected with the world, and it's something that is going to impact how I see myself, how I live my life, how I take actions, and in the same way what I do will impact you or those around us. So we cannot actually turn this involvement off. We can give it different forms and shapes, and that's something we'll talk about today. But any effort to turn it off is impossible. You can take different ways of engaging, but you cannot disengage.
Stop engaging.
Even disengage is okay, because then you try to turn it off, but fail at it. But the other side of it, not engaging, is not possible.
Samuel, when you're talking about being possible or not possible, do you think do you mean by possible means is it a conscious act?
Yeah.
Or is
I understand what
something
you
that
mean.
it's existentially built in
you.
know, it's an existential is an existential factor of my life. So,
Yeah.
I mean, life means being engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
Living means being engaged.
Yeah, I think it would be much more helpful if I bring a very Kantian category, because Kant is another great philosopher, German.
Yeah, as usual.
Yeah, so it's a J for German philosophers. But so he talks about the categories of understanding, the way we perceive the world. And so, like, for example, if you think about number, is number out there? Is one out there, two out there? No. Number is the way we understand the world.
It's an intellectual concept.
However, can you turn it off?
No.
When we see things, we see numbers.
We count it, yeah.
We our way of perceiving the world, engaging the world. Similarly, causality, the relationship between cause and effect. Kant, after following from Hume and other medieval philosophers, would argue that cause and effect is not out there. We see the world and we always connect. If I, for example, hit this glass, I see the water pouring over. I would always say that I caused this thing and then that thing happened. But this relationship is inbuilt in us. Yeah. I cannot turn it off. It's not voluntary. Similarly, it's inbuilt in us. It is who we are. We cannot turn it off. We can give it different shapes and forms. We can engage differently. But it is existential. This is who I am. I cannot not care about it. Yeah.
So it's a matter of really being in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot be in the world and not care.
Yeah.
The very coming to the world, or using Heideggerian concept, thrown into the world.
Yeah. You don't choose to be here.
No, actually, it's not a choice.
Yeah.
You're coming here with no choice. You're going out with no choice. Yeah. These are the two moments for Heidegger that there is no choice involved. The rest is what he calls life, and this is living, and it's all about having choices.
Yeah, you make choices, but definitely.
But it's really interesting because you have choices not about your engagement. You're already engaged because you're thrown out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in the game. Either you want it or not. I mean, you cannot stop it. You have already assigned something to it.
Yeah.
To you, and then you are in the game already. You haven't chosen it. That's fair.
Yeah.
And even at the time of leaving the game, even you cannot have a choice over when you leave the game. It's all about how you want to play it.
Yeah.
How you want to play with your choices, with your roles that you get. So it's all about the conscious thoughts and conscious decision making is all about how I want to play my role.
Yeah.
Not whether I want to play it or not.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not there. I mean, this is not a question for me that I'm already in the world.
Exactly.
If I'm not here, I mean, there's no. It's all of these things is not possible.
Exactly.
All of these discussions and everything. But the moment I'm there, I am there. I'm a human being. I'm there. It's being there. I'm already in the game.
And there is all that complexity. Other human beings, historical factors, what happened before me, what's going to happen in the future based on what we are doing. So there's temporality, there's spatiality. Everything is part of there. It's not just the physical object that is there, but rather everything that is happening around, including other human beings and what they are doing. So so that's the story. That's what's happening there.
Yeah. And I think part of Sameema, when you're thinking about, for example, something like Trump's presidential election, is just we're thinking about, as an Iranian, it is understandable. Why should I care about being Trump? Because things will be impacted in my home country, and people will be impacted by his policies. But the whole idea is, it's very interesting because they care about the world and that's why we are affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you stop caring, you are only impacted. You're not impacting.
Yeah.
It's not either you want to consciously play the game,
Yeah.
or played on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
You kind of become like, of course, you're not acting is impacting in another way.
Exactly.
But not in any creative way.
Exactly.
But you are acted upon.
Totally passive.
Yeah, acted upon.
This is a passive position.
Yeah.
But it's a position.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, first, and the basic idea is it's a position.
Yeah.
You are in the game. You are part of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So either you play your role consciously, purposefully, goal-oriented, in a goal-oriented manner, will change not only your life, actually this is your life, this is a goal-oriented life that you have, but also consciously acted upon the world. So you are impacting the world consciously.
Yeah.
And you're participating in forming the world and shaping the world.
Shaping the world.
But at the same time, not participating in this game that is already gone. Look, that game, it's already started.
Yeah.
And it will not be finished by me.
Yeah.
So I am thrown in the middle of something.
Yeah. And you're not seeing it till the end.
Rules. Exactly. I don't know the rules. I learn the rules.
Yeah.
And I pay for learning the rules.
Yeah.
And this game will not finish by me. So this will remain. So the whole idea is whatever I'm doing will not finish with me, because I made part of the scenario with me in the world. Part of the whole narrative of the world in a bigger picture, I was involved in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The world will not forget that I was in the world, because I had impacted the world. With my active participation or passive participation, because by passive participation, I enabled someone else's to be active participation. You know, I didn't take the role the way that I have to. Someone else's should take my role, because this thing the show must go on. Exactly. The show must go on.
Yeah.
So if I don't take the responsibility, someone else's either will take the responsibility in my place, or are going to be the responsibility going to be burden on someone else's on my ground to just really continue the game and continue the show. So how do you then explain such an involvement with the world in terms of mental health?
Yes, I was thinking about someone can say that, okay, I just focus on my life. I know that my actions, whether I buy meat from Coles or Woolies or my personal butcher or have a butchery in my backyard, it's going to impact other people. However, it's not impacting me in a way that is inconvenient to me. So I would rather prefer to have a stance where someone else takes the decision. I'm living my life happily. It doesn't involve me directly, and I'm fine. So can someone say that? Would someone say that in the middle of the whole Rome burning, I can actually play my fiddle and be happy? My playing the fiddle will actually impact a lot of people. They will be burning, but it's not impacting me. So I'm fine with that. So that's what we want to address, that can I be fine? Can I be fine witnessing all this happening, but I just close my ears, close my eyes, not witness anything, try to enclose myself as much as I can from all that ugliness of the world? Can I be okay? Can I do that without impacting myself, without hurting myself in any way?
Sameema, we heard a lot about this concept that we so shallowly and loosely, everyone can use it, and they use it in literature, in psychological literature, in political literature, in the social world, what we call trauma. I think we really loosely, I mean, normally people use the concept of trauma very loosely without really taking into account that what does it mean? Because it's not everything that happened to me, and it is not something that I expected will traumatize me. Being traumatized is a very specific psychological state of mind, you know, and it's a state of mind. It's not only symptoms, it's not a collection of symptoms.
It's not just being hurt.
Exactly.
Being hurt is one thing.
You know, I might not get a good mark and I'm hurt. I cut my finger.
Pain,
exactly.
Being sad. They are uncomfortable.
Exactly.
They are difficult, but they are not trauma.
So the whole idea of trauma, first of all, it's not something that happens to me. It's not the event itself. Something like war is traumatizing event, but it's an event. It's not a trauma itself. What is the trauma? Trauma is the effect of the event on me, on the psyche of a human being.
It's the significance.
Exactly.
Meaning making. So
exactly.
Trauma is all about meaning making.
Exactly.
The meaning I made out of it, which is again not a conscious effort.
No.
But but it is like what we want to kind of bring here is that it's not like passively affecting me. I'm also engaging with us. We as human beings are actually engaging with the world. So when I'm being there, my being there is engaging. Like my being there means that events do not just register in my head as this conqueror came, he killed this, he killed that, these many people died. Of course, that's true. But meaning making is more than that. Meaning making is much more complex and much more involved and engaged. And that's where trauma comes in. Trauma is part of meaning making and significance making.
So exactly. So it's something that belongs to me, not to the event.
Exactly.
So event is a shocking something that it's an outside impact on the psyche, but trauma is my inner response to that outer impact. So it really belongs to the psyche. So the way that psyche perceives what has happened, and how you can make meaning out of something that happened and impacted you. So the whole idea of trauma is my response to the world. So how about we're thinking about not every sad event, not every possible or probable traumatic event might create in me a traumatic response. I might have a different response. You know, I was reading and listening to a very interesting podcast, and they were talking about trauma and survival on Auschwitz during Holocaust. Why certain people survived? Yes, the whole idea of luck and chance is, I mean, out of luck, certain people did just, you know, it's just like they've never been seen, so they can never be picked out. And they survived. And that podcast we're discussing about the psychological status of survival in such miserable situation. But there were people who survived. How they survived? They've been traumatized, yes, and somehow some of them no. I mean, they survived.
Some were able to come back to life, and others could not.
So we had so varied collection of responses. Okay. So the very event is the concentration camp. That is the event. And the tortures and insults and oppression and suppression was there.
Dehumanization.
Dehumanization was there. That was the basics of such extraordinary place. But how people had different responses. So it's not that every sad event will traumatize me. Most of the time, we tend to remove ourselves from sad events because we tend to preserve our psyche and our mental health and not to be traumatized by the event. But the whole idea is not every sad event will traumatize you.
Yeah.
You might take another stance in face of a very sad event, in a crisis.
Yeah.
But this needs another calculation, that what is it, where is me, how I belong to the world, how I see myself as a person and an agent who participates in shaping the world, shaping this narrative of the world, this game, this narrative of the world. I am part of it. I might be only shocked by it, and that's fair. People shock, and they're gonna be really affect them in serious manners. That effect will stay for a lifelong time. But you might pass that moment, and you see yourself as part of the bigger narrative, and then you start to find a place for that very traumatic event, very sad event in the whole narrative of your life. And that is how in therapy, the very purpose of trauma therapy is this integration. How you integrate that event into the narrative of your life, instead of seeing it as a separate random incident that affected, because it wasn't part of the scenario that you ever imagined for yourself, and that's why it affected you, because it was a surprise. But at the same time, we feel that, okay, it happened to me, but how can I find a place and integrate it into this game that I'm playing? So it's not that the only response to a sad event would be trauma. You can do more than that. And why I'm talking about trauma, because it's not about something that happens to the person who will traumatize that person per se, and that's the only and only that person will be traumatized. No, actually, we will have peoples who are witnessing that traumatic event, that what that person has been through. You're witnessing that you're going to be traumatized as well. This is in psychological literature what is called secondary trauma. So as witness of the world, we are witnesses in the world, in the events that's happening around us, either in our neighborhood, in our neighboring country, in our neighboring state, either the other side of the world, in Palestine and between Palestine and Israel, what's the genocide that is happening in Gaza, the things that are happening in Ukraine, and humans' treatment, humans' interaction with those things. Not only the very genocide that is happening gonna traumatize me, but the world's response to the genocide can be traumatizing.
The silence.
For me, the silence can be traumatizing as well. So it's not about the action that happened, but me witnessing passivity can traumatize me.
I think a good way to think about it is, like, for example, think about COVID, or even think about any big natural disaster. It comes and kills people.
Flood in Spain last week.
We had, bushfires in Australia, damage. And I think I remember Bovar here, but we don't call a flood evil. We don't call an earthquake evil, because it's sad. It can be traumatizing in another way. However, what we understand here is that it happened as a natural disaster. it costed a lot of human life. People are in pain and misery. However, when people are killing other people in the name of religion, in the name of land, in the name of money, political ideas, that impacts us very differently.
Yeah.
Because there is a different kind of meaning and significance that we attach there. It's not just loss of one life here, loss of one life there. These two losses of life are very, very different. And the way we make sense of it, the way it signifies something to us, is going to be very different from how we understand the loss of life in a volcanic eruption, or any other, like failure of a machinery, an aeroplane. Of course that was a human mistake, however not intentionally done. So all these different actions or these different events will have a very, very different impact on us in terms of our meaning making and our engagement and involvement with the world. And that's where it brings us to the idea of, what does it mean to perceive an event in this world and see the response of the rest of the world to that event, and how does it impact me as a human being?
It's a very and I'm actually returning to us as individuals that are affected by not only the genocidal events that are happening and unfolding on the other part of the world, and not only one even. I mean, we are witnessing, we are sitting in part of the history that we are witnessing, and it's like it's televised, it's everywhere. It's, you cannot really shut down your eyes and your ears and you assume that it's not impacting me. The whole idea is it's already impacting you. Why? Because you're turning off the TV. Or you're changing the channel. So you are avoiding. This avoidance means it's impacting you. You're involved. You are touched. It is something that is rubbed on you.
And it's so uncomfortable.
And it's so uncomfortable that you take yourself away from that. So it's already impacting this. I think the realization of I am an agent in the world, and the things in the world not only affecting me, but actually I'm responding to the effect. That it's just something dangerous happening to me, rubbing on my skin. It's hot, it's damaging, and I don't remove myself from it. So you look at the person and say, okay, are you okay? Why you don't preserve yourself? Not only by removing yourself, you feel that, okay, this time I could remove myself. Next time this will come and rub on me, and I don't have any space to remove myself from it, or preserve myself by just removing myself from its hit. The whole idea is, even when I'm changing a channel, when I start just looking at other TikTok posts, I am avoiding something. I'm consciously avoiding not engaging with a burning person in hospital in Gaza. I'm consciously aware I don't want to be touched. The whole reality is I'm already touched. What do you want to do with this touch? Being touched? Are you wanna say, I'm gonna be traumatized, this is a secondary trauma, so therefore I don't want to engage anymore? I said, okay, where is my ground to play here? Do I have a ground to play here? Sometimes I feel that at least people like us, I mean, I'm just really talking personally here, that how this thing affects me, because it's affecting me. I mean, it's affecting my very being. As a lecturer, it affects the way that I teach. It affects, you can see in my slides that how it affected my very being in the world. And sometimes I feel that, am I acting like a masochist? That I'm really, that's a real question for me. I remember when we were studying Fanon, and Fanon talks about Frantz Fanon was a psychiatrist, a French black psychiatrist, and amazing reads you can find on Fanon. And he talks about violence. And he talks about you cannot prevent really acting against violence without violence. Because this is the language that is everyone knows. Okay. And I was thinking about this stance of anger. You stay in the stance of anger. That was a very real question for me, that how, because look, anger is an emotion. It comes, but it should not be stay, because it's just, this is what I always tell to my clients, that anger is a very, very healthy emotion. Actually, you cannot build a house without smoke alarm. You cannot be a human being without an anger. If you're not getting angry, there's something wrong.
Because it's like showing you are not happy, you're in pain.
It's exactly like a smoke alarm. But how much you can stand?
You can't live
the
with the smoke
beating of the smoke alarm. It's impossible. But somehow anger can become stance. Can become the very mode of your being.
And it's like smoke alarm going
exactly
all the time.
Going on all the time. And I was thinking about part of being a rebellion is just keeping that smoke alarm as loud as possible.
All the time.
But that is the question. Is that the right thing? Can anger become a stance and then you stay a healthy person? Can we talk about mental health and talking about a ever-going smoke alarm? Are you able even to distinguish any other sounds other than beeping anymore? Are you going to stand and recognize the kindness around you, the sacrifices around you? But at the same time, if you shut down the anger, are you gonna go to realize the injustices around you?
So that's like, we are thinking about one way is, it's so too traumatizing. Let's not talk about it. Let's change the channel.
Exactly.
And that's, we'll come to that idea. Why is that? And that is problematic. But what it does to you. But on the other side, I'm so engaged that I'm perpetually angry.
Yes.
Because something is happening all the time. You cannot turn on the TV, read news, look at, or just be involved in the world and not notice an injustice.
Exactly, Sameema. We are living in a world that systematically is unjust.
Exactly, at each and every level.
Injustice is systematically imposed on people. So it's not about something happening.
It's always happening, all the time, everywhere.
We are living in a structure that is pressing us. So either you want to be numb,
or be angry.
Or be angry. Is there any middle ground? Really, it's puzzle. It's a puzzle that, where do you want to put this middle ground? And describe, no, this is the healthy ground, but at the same time you are not numb. And you, at the time that is necessary, you can revolt.
And I think, I'm not sure if it's kind of digressing from what we're discussing. I was just thinking of, again, Fanon, but again thinking about expressing your, in a way, solidarity, which is much more what we are talking here about, the secondary trauma.
Exactly.
And we'll come to the question of moral injury very soon. But, when you see an injustice happening, and especially an injustice in some way in your name, in the sense that, we live in the privileged Western world, and a lot of that is happening in the unprivileged part of the world is in our name. We are somehow an accomplice in some way, some way or the other, not directly involved, but it's done in our name. And Fanon was reflecting on basically the basic colonization of Algeria by French or France, in that time, and the whole idea of violence is coming from there. He was himself from Martinique, another colonized island. I think it's still a French colony. I'm not
Yes, it
sure, but he was like, at the moment he was talking about Algerian war and everything else, and the violence that he's talking about there.
Yes.
He was training people,
Yes.
and so he was very, very, very much in there. And at the same time, French intellectuals, white intellectuals like Sartre, Beauvoir, they were writing, Camus, who was an Algerian French, they were writing about these topics as well. And Beauvoir and Sartre were very, very engaged in rallies. They were doing a lot of things in a different way. However, Fanon said that all these things are basically their ways of appeasing their own conscience, because I just don't want to feel bad, so I'll do certain things. So he was saying that you need to be perpetually angry. And if you are just doing a few things, that's basically you just want to feel like a good person. And so you want to do a few things.
Is that enough? It's about not only doing it, but how much is enough.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you know, and also like, can you ever be, you know, in any way show solidarity for something which is not impacting you directly? So like, Fanon was deeply, deeply suspicious of that. And that has always perplexed me. I do not agree with him. And I feel that there's a way of doing that.
But the thing is, how can it be look like? I mean, I don't have any idea of where's this middle ground.
Exactly.
Because, and I think I would like to get back to Heidegger and this sense of everydayness.
Yeah.
Sameema, everydayness is so comfortable.
Yeah.
That you, and he talks about the flow of everydayness consumes you.
Yeah.
Because it's so comfortable. Everything is at hand. Everything is normal. It's so subtle. It has a subtle flow that you don't recognize even the flow of time, the passing of the time.
Yeah.
And this is where we live.
Exactly.
Constantly.
It's comfortable.
And it's comfortable. And it seems that in mental health, sometimes you realize that it is something that is promoted, that get back to your everydayness.
Exactly.
That is not the case. That is not the case. Even in CBT, DBT, that intellectual engagement with with something that is intruding. It's all about coming out of everydayness.
Yeah.
Pause the everydayness. See yourself from above. That where are you even seated?
Yeah.
Where are you situated in this everydayness? So the whole idea is, how can you be not consumed by everydayness,
yeah,
but at the same time not angry?
Yeah, not consumed by anger either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not consumed by anger. Not being deaf by this beeping sound of anger, because it's deafening.
Yeah,
it's deafening. The whole idea, just sit yourself and just this beeps. The battery is running off, and this beeps is impossible. But then it becomes your stance, the very way of being, your way of being. But at the same time, you think that, okay, yes, I get angry, but it's a long way to be traumatized. Anger, what is anger? Anger is an alarm that something is going on, that it's against your principle. Anger is a response, or is an alarm, is a hazardous
it's
action.
a very moral.
Exactly.
It's like you see something wrong.
It's deeply moral, actually.
You see something is wrong.
Yeah.
There's there's something which shouldn't be happening.
Yes.
It has a very should component.
Yes.
And we're not saying that, anger is always justified, anger is always right. However, anger is stemming from our moral sense of the world.
Exactly.
This is how things should be, they are not. And that's what makes you angry. So it's a very, very moral stance.
So, and it's really interesting because we are thinking about, and specifically in psychological interventions, we're thinking about, okay, why are you angry? And how about not being angry and doing something else? But at least in philosophical term and in a philosophical therapy room, anger is not a problematic emotion. Actually, it's very human.
Yes.
It's intrinsically human and moral emotion, because it reminds you that something against your moral codes are happening.
Yeah.
And it's an alarm. It will not give you a distance. It will not guide you how to act. I mean, imagine that there is a fire in a house. Smoke alarm only shows that there is a fire. There's a smoke somewhere, but it doesn't guide you to the exit.
Exactly. Nor does it tell you in which section of the house it's there.
Exactly. It's
nor
nothing.
Like who started it. Whose mistake was that?
Exactly. It doesn't show you who started it. It doesn't show where it is exactly located. It doesn't show how intense it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't show whether even it's a smoke. It might be a burnt toast in a toaster.
Exactly.
It might be even totally fallacious.
Exactly.
And it doesn't guide you to being totally untouched and exited. So it doesn't give you an exit way. All of the things is just showing that something is going on and it's not right.
Yeah, it's against the principles on which this house is built.
Exactly. So against the principle of the health of this building and this house.
Yeah.
This house of being, Heidegger, this is again Heidegger. I mean, this house of being is, which it talks about language is the house of being. It's gonna be affected by this, against something that happened here, and it's against your moral code. If you are not listening to this anger, what will happen? Someone said, okay, I'm too sleepy. It's too uncomfortable. I don't want to, you just go and disable it from somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it that something is going on. Again, it's the toast. No one else in this house against you. And I mean, probably it's not the toast. But you are not too inclined to move on and see, okay, what's going on in this house? Where this smoke alarm? Why this smoke alarm is run off? You neglect your anger. What will happen? So let me just pose the question. What do you think that will happen? And then I'll introduce another concept.
Okay, so if not the smoke alarm, I don't know what. Like, you will go crazy if the smoke alarm is just going on and on. You will lose your capacity to hear.
Yeah, anything else.
Anything else, or anything at all. You'll go deaf if you are living with a perpetual smoke alarm. You'll go deaf, and that's it. But a person who is perpetually suppressing, overlooking their anger, not expressing it properly, they'll become numb. Yeah.
So, and then the house will be burned.
Yeah, the house will be burnt.
The house will be burnt out totally.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose yourself.
Yeah.
By changing channel and not listening to the alarm.
Yeah, you're damaging.
We are damaging ourselves. One of the things that is very interesting, and it's a very interesting concept, is called moral injury. That is the moment that you have done something, perpetually you have done something which is against your moral code.
Yeah.
This and the experience of moral injury is very similar to the experience of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
It's very similar to PTSD. This normally is experienced by veterinary soldiers. this will be experienced by early responders to crisis. This is common for health workers, doctors, surgeons, people who are aid workers in crisis area because of the limitations of the facilities, but the unlimited amount of need and the care which is needed actually for the time. So you need to choose against your moral code. And the whole idea is, if we stick to Heidegger, it is against our moral code to not listen to what's happening around us.
Not care about it.
Not caring. It's just like we are pausing the life. We are pausing the engagement with the world. So it's not, so we definitely, if we don't act upon the anger, the house will be burnt and we're gonna, this will be damaged. One of those damages is this moral injury. That you feel that you've done something against your moral principles. You believe in freedom, but you are following the very principles of the oppressor. You are sustaining by everyday actions, by
not doing
there,
anything,
by not doing something, by drinking something, by looking at, visiting your friends in certain coffee shop or something. You're sustaining an oppression. You're sustaining an oppressive power. However, you're believing in freedom. You believe in emancipation. Your mental health will be affected. Your very way of being will be affected. And one of the things that can be called one of the symptoms will be moral injury. So it's not that these things will not affect us, will not affect our mental health. Our way of being is reflected in our mental health. Our choices are reflected in our mental health. Our mental sufferings is the outcome of the deficiency of this interaction. Something is going on. Something is went wrong here. That something happened and I couldn't make meaning out of it. Or meaning making wasn't addressing the very specific factors or the information that is given to me by the world. So
I was thinking about coming to the idea of which we often use in it was a very philosophical term, but it has become very everyday term now, authenticity. So it is something as a human being, we don't want hypocrisy. We want to be authentic. We want to be, as what you can say is a healthy state of being, being Dasein. We seek authenticity. And moral injury or secondary trauma, all these things are taking you away from your authenticity. And authenticity is not something that you achieve once and for all, because as we discussed, that human beings are a project. We are always becoming.
It's not a
So
finished
authenticity is sought in every moment. Each and every decision can be authentic and authentic. But if you are perpetually silencing that call for care from different corners of your life, different areas of your life, you are actually choosing inauthenticity moment after moment, and that's moral injury. You are hurting yourself. You are basically perpetually living in this sense of a sort of guilt, which is very different from a guilt where you have directly harmed someone, because this is something very,
and it is very subtle.
Subtle.
You don't understand it. It's even this very term, the terminology, moral injury, it's a very new term. I think it was and it's not even well introduced. It's not something that you can find everywhere. I mean, you can find PTSD in the last after Second World War,
Yeah.
really this idea, this very terminology of PTSD came to being in psychology. But the whole idea is there are, and I believe that these responses to the world is much more than pride, joy, neglect, guilt, shame. It's much more complicated than that. Moral injury, just one of them, is just one of them.
Exactly.
The very turmoil that we as individuals living in the past year, by every day turning on looking at the post, turning on the news, listening about the genocide, and thinking about, oh my God, it was a time that nobody talked about, nobody knew about Holocaust, nobody knew about concentration camps, and we are so deeply ashamed that we belong to a history that something like that ever happened.
Yeah.
And now we are witnessing exactly the same thing is unfolding.
Yeah.
And we're just
witnessing,
turning away and witnessing, either turning away or just witnessing it. Best case scenario, we get angry.
Yeah.
I mean, and then what?
Exactly.
So it's about how the world is impacted us.
Yeah.
And how we impact this world by not knowing what's going on in us and to us.
Yeah.
And how we can be meaningfully engaged with this experience.
Yeah.
If I don't recognize moral injury, I cannot change my stance and my way of being in the world.
Yeah.
So the recognition of my responses to the world is the first stance in changing your orientation to the world.
Yeah. Yeah, which again brings us back to the whole idea of where we started, that, being there means being engaged with the world. And that's where we cannot detach our political being, our social being from, our everyday being.
Yeah.
So we try to forget, we try to submerge ourselves in our everydayness, but it's not possible. The everyday is political. It's not that one day I go and vote and I become political. No, my everydayness is political, and political is more than just my city council, my federal election or this or that. It's my being in the world.
Yeah.
We impact each other way beyond just our local politics. And what we want to get at in the end is that we're not saying that there's one particular political stand that is right, or there's one particular way of doing politics that's right or wrong. It's rather more about being there. We need to be politically, socially engaged, involved with the world. And if we are not doing that, we are actually not living an authentic life, which in the end harms us. We cannot shut it down.
And it's a bad faith in a
exactly.
sense that you don't recognize the care. You haven't been recognized that you're already in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not about I want to be in the game or not. You are there.
Yeah.
In a Heideggerian sense, you belong to the care. You're already caring because you are living. So do you want to do it consciously and actively?
Exactly.
Or you just sit there and the care of the other will impact you?
Yeah, exactly.
This is this. It's not about third way.
Yeah.
Either you are impacted or you're impacting.
Exactly.
And even being impacted, again, it's impacting the world.
Exactly.
It is so complicated, but at the same time simple.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no third way.
Exactly. And there's no clear answer. Whatever decisions you make, as you started in the beginning, the consequences are beyond. You can think about a few consequences, but the chain of consequences are just beyond your imagination. So that's not something that is expected, and no one believes that they can do that. However, as being there, being involved, the authenticity that is expected of us or demanded of us by our own being is that we just don't submerge into everydayness.
Mm-hmm.
We engage in this world and get involved in this world in a conscious way, and that's what our authenticity demands. And if we are shutting that down, it shows.
Yeah.
We
That
cannot,
is important. It shows.
It shows. It shows in different forms. You can shut it down. You can try to live, a materialistically happy life, but
you're really acting out. I mean, it's just exactly what we say. It's acting out.
Yeah, but you would feel the underlying uneasiness, the underlying inauthenticity, because as a human being, you're Dasein.
Yeah.
And Dasein cannot not care.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good point where we can end this
Thank
session.
you so much, Sameema. It was a great conversation, and I think Heidegger, you did a great job of just making it accessible for everyone, and for this discussion, which was quite multidisciplinary, and really started to see human being as a multifaceted being.
Yeah.
That really this care created these facets.
Yeah, exactly.
The very way that we care about the world creates these dimensions of personality and dimensions to the self. And thank you everyone for joining us and following us. Every day someone else is actually adding to the followers, and I appreciate everyone for their interest and for their time. So we'll see you in 4 weeks' time.
Thank you. Bye.